in a nation where they get to be anything they want to be. That's a true testament to the endurance strength of the American dream. So if my girls can get that chance, why shouldn't every child in America get the same chance? If my girls can get a fair shot, why shouldn't every child get a fair shot? This is really what we're fighting for. This is what our work's all about. To give every child and family a fair shot at reaching their fullest potential. And the Total Child Health Bureau has been fighting this fight for over 100 years, dating back to the establishment of the Children's Bureau in 1912. I'm proud and humbled to be leading the Bureau in this fight now. And I ask you to join me. If you still believe in America's greatness, if you still believe that every child deserves a fair shot, together and let's work to help America reach its fullest potential, helping every family, every child reach their fullest potential, because ultimately that's what our work in MCH is all about. Thank you very much.
Can you briefly summarize the question?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. The question is that as the demographics in kind of our nation changes, kind of with the growth of immigrants, with the growth of people of color, how do we make sure that our research, that our studies focuses on this change in demographics, focuses on these youth population to provide insights into what we need to do to improve child health. And I think that recognition and the understanding that we really have to be a lot more precise than what we've been doing for a long time. I think that's going to be really important. But when you look all the Asian and Pacific Islander groups put together, for example, that you often miss important insights into the disparities that's within that group, and that for example, Filipino Americans have a mortality like that of Chinese Americans, and that as immigrants become more Americanized, more enculturated, that they often lose those birth advantages that they traditionally enjoyed. So what are those things that are driving the differential outcomes in child health? I don't think we pay enough attention to it. I think this is certainly an area that we need to pay closer attention, and there are probably things that we can learn about these populations that provide useful insight into how do we improve the child health for the entire MCH population.
Thank you very much.
So we're entering our very last phase here. We have one final keynote speaker. We're very fortunate to have Peter Singer join us from Toronto. I've known Peter for a number of years as a close colleague and friend, truly an inspiring leader in the global health space. Peter was at the University of Toronto, still is at the University of Toronto, as a bioethics expert, one of the leading voices on bioethics around the world. He saw a tremendous need as he was going around the world and observing. And I remember at I think it was an American Academy of Pediatrics meeting a number of years ago, he sat me down and he said, what do you think about an initiative saving brains? And it's just like, wow, that's exactly what we need. As I began my comments at the beginning, this is where global health is going. We have got to maximize the opportunity of children to survive and to become productive, happy, well-being, adults with well-being. So Peter went on and formed Grand Challenges Canada, and has led that organization for the last 5 years and has focused on a number of initiatives around saving brains. First of all, understanding the extent of the problem, the implications of the problem, how you measure the problem, how you intervene upon the problem. His organization has produced over 700 innovations in more than 80 countries at this point. I won't go on to list his many honors that he's had. There are many. I would like to say, however, I think Peter is really driving a whole new way of doing development. His organization has been extremely results-driven, certainly innovative, but very focused on results, very focused on being open about the ways in which to go about their business. Great communities of practice together and coming around the table as equals to discuss these issues and to look for solutions in all possible places. So it's with great delight that I introduce Peter Singer to talk about saving brains, innovations to help children thrive. Thank you very much, Gary. It's really a privilege to be here with all of you and with Gary, who's been such a leader in child health and such an early advocate of Thrival, term I think Vishwajit actually. I first heard it from Vishwajit many years ago and his terrific work. And Gary's also had a lot to do, as he mentioned, with the formulation of this idea of saving brains. And what I'd like to do in the next 30 minutes or so is just give you an overview of what is a portfolio of innovations that are trying to really shift the focus from survival alone to also include thrival for children in low and middle-income countries. And it's a portfolio that's now developing in partnership with many other organizations that you can see listed. Many of those organizations have complementary portfolios, but as Gary mentioned, we're all working together really to try and keep the focus on the end beneficiary, which is the world's children and their opportunity to thrive. This is one of many grand challenges that you will have heard of. Saving lives at birth is another one, and it's part of the broader grand challenges movement, but it's one that really has brought focus onto this issue of thrival, I think. And you see it stands even into domestic governments, like we done with Ethiopia, which recently launched its own grand challenges Ethiopia, and wanted to focus on this problem that's so central to the children of Ethiopia. The challenge then is to develop and scale up products, policies, and delivery models to protect and nurture brain development in an equitable and sustainable manner. Someone needs to save my brain because I came out here without the clicker. So either you're going to click the slide or somebody can bring the clicker out to me. Perfect. That's wonderful. So what is the problem? Thank you. What is the problem that we're seeking to address? And many of these things have been referenced already in the talks this morning. The problem that we're seeking to address is for 1 in 3 children, that's 200 million children globally, who fail to reach their full physical, cognitive, psychological, and psychoemotional potential due to poverty, poor health and nutrition, insufficient care, stimulation. I'll talk a little bit about the risk factors in the approach in a moment, and of course other risk factors. So enabling this whole movement of early child development in the first 3 years of life, as we've heard throughout the conference, has very important returns, including economic returns of 7 to 10% across the life course through better education, health, sociability, economic outcomes, and even reduced crime, which I think was referenced this morning. The global strategy for women, children, and adolescent health, which is the implementation of the Secretary General's Every Woman, Every Child initiative, was actually relaunched this past fall with a focus on survive, thrive, and transform. So thrive is now in the global policy discourse. The real question, and this is the question I'm going to want to address with you, is how do we actually apply solutions? What solutions do we have? How can we actually apply solutions? How can we turn the types of knowledge we're hearing about here into concrete action for the world's children? Just to reference one of the earlier talks, we heard about Zika. Zika can be thought about as a threat to saving brains. So if you look at a holistic look at various risk factors, you see there promote health and nutrition, infection prevention and management is on there. Zika is a new saving brains threat. And actually, one should ask oneself what the GDP of Brazil in 20 to 30 years is going to be like, because there's tens of millions of cases of Zika, probably many more children infected than we know. Microcephaly is probably the tip of the iceberg. There's probably much wider effects on brain development and child development. We know that translates into effects on there's a lot of activity on Zika. We heard, for example, about the President Obama's initiative, and the USAID launched the Zika Challenge recently, etc., Grand Challenge. But it really is a social, economic, and public health emergency that maybe isn't garnering the type of resources that are needed to safeguard what the effect on Brazil and other countries in the region, the economy and society could be like 20 to 30 years from now as the kids who are infected today grow up. Anyway, one of the niches in the Grand Challenge on saving brains is that we've taken a holistic approach, whereas many people over many years have started with the independent variable. Take one risk factor like nutrition and say, nutrition's bad for brain development, I'm going to solve nutrition. Many people have done that over time, and they've calculated the economic benefits of it. But what we've done is taken a holistic approach, focused on the dependent variable, which is the brain development, the developmental potential of children. And we're risk factor agnostic because we recognize that the various risk factors operate in an interrelated manner, and different risk factors will be important in different jurisdictions. Think about Brazil and Zika now. That's probably the most prominent risk factor. But others are always in play everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're well-nourished, if you're a child soldier in northern Uganda. And so we really have to think about the independent risk factors in a holistic manner and just focus on, I love the Willie Sutton metaphor, where the money is children's development. Let's focus on the dependent factor and how many brains we could be saving out of those 1 out of 3 children, the 200 million globally who fail to reach their full potential. So against that Grand Challenge, the commitment to the Saving Brains Challenge in particular, and Grand Challenges Canada is funded by the Government of Canada, so these are public Canadian taxpayer resources. We've committed just over $42 million Canadian to just over 100 innovations and a platform in Thrival, in Saving Brains. And I'll describe some of those to you. This has happened over the past 5 years or so. And what this has turned into is probably the world's largest holistic pipeline of Thrival innovations. As I mentioned, it's updated. It's aligned with the global strategy for women, children, and adolescent health. There's actually a website called SavingBrainsInnovations.net where you can see all these innovations categorized, including service receipts. And in terms of leadership, we've tried to catalyze a growing partnership on focus on child development in low and middle-income countries and the economic potential of that. Let me just say a word or two more about that before going on to the solutions. If you were an evil scientist and you wanted to make sure that developing nations really didn't develop, and the poor in the developing world, but also, as Alan was pointing out, and as many of the speakers have been pointing out, the poor in our own countries never really achieve social mobility. What would you do? What would you do? You'd actually do this. You would make sure that in the first 1,000 days of life, something happened to children's brains, so they would never reach their full potential. And poverty would be transmitted generation after generation. And kids in poor families would be locked in poverty, whether they were kids in disadvantaged communities here in the United States or Canada, or in low and middle-income countries. So you could think about this problem as really a way of perpetuating poverty. You could think about the solution to this problem as a way of breaking out poverty both locally and globally. And that's counterfactual of the evil scientists, and what you can do, I think, is a very heavy signal. Because what that says to me is that this Saving Brains challenge is really one of the most fundamental societal challenges that we face. $100 billion a year to the economy globally, and as you'll see, that's an underestimate, and huge amounts of social suffering, as you'll see. This is related to violence, and you've heard. So this is a very fundamental challenge. So the issue isn't the challenge. We've heard a lot of knowledge around the challenge. The issue is, well, what are we going to do about it? What kind of solutions do we have in place? These numbers I won't dwell on, but just of those 100-plus projects, these are the amounts of children who are using innovations to date, caregivers, workers trained. We're just, to Gary's point, we're following metrics and also metrics of child development and some core metrics across the projects. So we started out with some knowledge generation things. We used what I think was a relatively creative approach of a request for proposals to all those folks who had done randomized trials of a wide range of interventions in the first 1,000 days of life in the past. Many of those trials were actually oriented around survival innovations or child development innovations, but with short-term follow-up. And what we said is, okay, you did your trial 10, 15, 20 years ago. We will now give you some funds to follow up those children and to see what happens to them developmentally in the long term. It's actually, if you will, a poor person's way of getting a lot of information very quickly from randomized trials and previous things that were done. There's some really interesting preliminary findings from that initial, I think it was around $10 or $12 million of investment, and most of these are still unpublished, and I would be the last one to disclose unpublished findings and introduce pre-publication bias, so I would never do that. So I've listed them on these slides as associations, but just read through them. And imagine a world, and I'm not saying that these associations are positive, but imagine a world where these associations actually were positive. Kangaroo mother care for low birth weight infants, and measuring the effect on schooling and wages in 20 years. Imagine if kangaroo mother care actually was protective of low birth weight infants 20 years later, and you could show pictures of kids' brains that were essentially normal if they received kangaroo mother care and ratty if they didn't, and the correlative issues in child development. Imagine if you were following up kids with malaria in Bangladesh, and you saw huge amounts of disability after not cerebral malaria but severe malaria, and you're looking at the effects of rectal artesunate. Imagine if you're looking at the intervention of responsive stimulation and nutrition together on school readiness 4 years later in Pakistan. Imagine if you're looking at exclusive breastfeeding and its relationship to conduct disorders, cognitive development in boys in KwaZulu-Natal, newborn maternal vitamin A supplementation and scholastic performance in Bangladesh, or multiple micronutrient supplementation and social and child development later in, I think, Indonesia. So these are all findings that haven't come out. I'm obviously not sharing the findings with you. I'm just talking about the associations. But imagine if all these associations were positive and there was some increased amount of knowledge here from what these risk factors actually are by taking that approach. And as an aside, we could talk in the discussion period about the crippling effect of academic publishing, and I think Vishwajit actually referred to this, on saving lives and improving lives in the developing world. That's a separate discussion in terms of timeline. We've also funded some economic work. I mentioned before that the global strategy for women, children, and adolescent health said that the total cost of the world economy of this problem of ignoring child development, they're actually talking about maternal, newborn, child health overall, is $100 billion a year. Well, the cost comes from the child development side. It doesn't come so much from the child survival side. That's where the costs of this problem are in MNCH. And we supported some modeling, and again, unpublished, but I can tell you the number is significantly larger than $100 billion a year, and I think this will become apparent soon. And you can also segment it by country. As you see on the website here, you can zoom into, imagine you're a finance minister, and you can zoom in on your country, and you can see what the GDP loss of all the related to each of the various risk factors of of poor child development are. So, for example, malnutrition and other types of risk factors. This is still a snapshot of things to come, but imagine if you could do that and how that would motivate you to actually make investments in your own country. That's the kind of stuff that's coming.